No nanny could endure the billionaire's restless triplets until a humble maid stepped in and achieved the impossible, changing their lives forever in a way no one could have imagined. Before we begin, I want to share that this content has reached people in over 50 countries last week. Let's see how far we go today. If you like what you see, please subscribe and follow our channel so you don't miss anything. The crystal vase shattered against the marble floor of the Mitchell mansion as 4-year-old Noah hurled it from the grand staircase. His siblings Emma and Lily shrieked with delight, their tiny hands already reaching for the next expensive decoration within their grasp. "Mr. Mitchell, I absolutely cannot." Mrs. Henderson's voice cracked as she clutched her designer handbag, her 6th resignation letter in as many months trembling in her manicured fingers. "These children are... they're impossible." James Mitchell stood in his mahogany-paneled office doorway, his steel-grey eyes surveying the chaos that had become his Connecticut estate. At 38, he'd built a technology empire worth billions, but 3 4-year-olds had brought him to his knees. $20,000 a month wasn't enough. His voice carried the exhaustion of a man who'd tried everything. "Sir, money can't replace sanity." Mrs. Henderson stepped over scattered toys and broken porcelain. "In 2 weeks, they've destroyed my laptop, cut my hair while I slept, and somehow programmed the smart house to play death metal at 3 a.m. I have a master's degree in child psychology from Harvard." Emma appeared at the top of the stairs, chocolate smeared across her angelic face, holding scissors that definitely shouldn't be in a 4-year-old's hands. "Daddy, we made the flowers pretty." She pointed to the severed heads of Margaret's prized roses floating in the fountain. James's jaw tightened. Since Catherine's death 2 years ago, the triplets had spiraled beyond control. Therapists spoke of displaced grief and acting out. But none had solutions. 27 nannies had quit. The most expensive boarding schools had politely declined admission. "The children need consistency, not another stranger." Margaret, his elderly housekeeper, appeared with a dustpan, her Irish accent thick with disapproval. "Throwing money at this won't fix what's broken in their hearts." Mrs. Henderson was already at the door. "I've arranged my replacement. A specialist from Switzerland. She starts Monday." The door slammed behind her. Lily's wails echoed from the kitchen, followed by the sound of something expensive hitting the floor. James closed his eyes, remembering Catherine's gentle laugh, her way of turning chaos into games. The triplets had been angels with her. "Perhaps we should consider," Margaret began. "No institutional care." James's voice was final. "They've lost enough." But watching Noah slide down the banister toward a priceless Ming vase, James wondered if he was failing them more by keeping them home. Sarah Collins pressed her ear against the kitchen door, her heart breaking as Lily's sobs echoed through the mansion. The 4-year-old had been crying for 30 minutes, while Margaret attempted damage control from the breakfast disaster. "Mama made pancakes with faces," Lily hiccuped. "Happy faces with blueberry eyes." Sarah's chest tightened. She understood that ache, the desperate longing for someone who'd never return. At 26, she'd been working as the estate's cleaning lady for 6 months, invisible to everyone except Margaret, who'd shown her kindness when kindness was rare. "Your mama sounds wonderful, sweetheart." Margaret's patient voice drifted through the door. "But throwing syrup won't bring her back. I want Mama." Lily's voice crescendoed into a scream that seemed to shake the crystal chandelier. Sarah couldn't listen anymore. Pushing through the door, she found chaos. Pancakes splattered across Italian marble, syrup dripping from hand-painted cabinets, and Margaret looking defeated as she held a thrashing Lily. "She's been asking for her mother since dawn," Margaret explained, exhaustion in her weathered face. "The boys barricaded themselves in the playroom after Emma put salt in their orange juice." Sarah knelt beside Lily, her voice soft. "I lost my mama too when I was little." The crying stopped. Lily's tear-swollen blue eyes, so much like her father's, focused on Sarah's face. Really? Really? And you know what she used to tell me when I was sad? Sarah gently wiped Lily's cheeks. She said, "Tears water the garden of our hearts, so beautiful memories can grow." Lily considered this seriously. Mama liked gardens. She had dirt under her fingernails. Sarah smiled. "Mine too. Would you like to plant something for your mama? In the dirt?" For the first time in months, Lily nodded. Margaret watched in amazement as Sarah led Lily outside, speaking softly about sunflowers and how love never really disappears. Through the window, she saw Emma and Noah's curious faces pressed against the glass. By noon, Sarah had coaxed all three children into the garden. Emma carefully patted soil around tiny seeds, while Noah watered with intense concentration. They worked in companionable silence, something that hadn't happened since Catherine's death. James found them there, mud-streaked and laughing as Sarah showed them how earthworms helped flowers grow. The sight stopped him cold. His children, his impossible, brilliant, broken children, looked almost normal. Absolutely not. James's voice cut through the morning air as he discovered Sarah reading to the triplets in the library, all four curled together on the antique Persian rug. "This isn't your responsibility." 3 days had passed since the garden incident. 3 miraculous days of relative peace. The Swiss specialist had cancelled last minute, leaving them scrambling for solutions, but somehow Sarah had stepped into the gap. Sarah looked up from "Where the Wild Things Are," Emma's head heavy against her shoulder. "I'm sorry, Mr. Mitchell. Margaret asked me to watch them while she handled the grocery delivery. I don't pay you to babysit." The words came out harsher than intended. James had spent the morning on conference calls, actually able to focus for the first time in months. The productivity felt almost foreign. "Daddy's grumpy," Noah whispered loudly, making Emma giggle. "Noah," Sarah's voice held gentle correction. "Your daddy works very hard to take care of you. Sometimes grown-ups get tired, just like you do after playing." James blinked. In 2 years, no one had defended him to his children. "Are you tired, Daddy?" Lily slipped off Sarah's lap and approached him with unusual boldness. "Sarah says tired people need hugs." Before he could respond, small arms wrapped around his legs. The simple gesture, affection freely given rather than demanded, nearly undid him. "I suppose, if Margaret needs assistance," he found himself saying. "We planted beans," Emma announced. "They're going to grow tall like Daddy." "And we're learning about Vikings," Noah added importantly. "They had boats and battles and beards." Sarah's cheeks flushed pink. "I'm sorry. I know I overstepped. It's just they're so smart. They were bored, not bad." James studied the woman who'd somehow tamed his wild children. She wore a simple blue dress, probably thrift store, and her dark hair was pulled back practically, nothing like the polished professionals he'd hired. But her eyes held something those expensive experts lacked: genuine care. "The agency is sending someone new tomorrow," he said carefully. "Of course." Sarah began gathering books, but her hands trembled slightly. "I should get back to cleaning." As she moved toward the door, Lily's voice stopped everyone. "Don't go away, Sarah. Please don't go away like Mama." The desperation in those 4 words hung in the air like a prayer. James watched Sarah kneel to Lily's level, promising gently that she wasn't going anywhere, that she'd still be here to tend their garden. The professional part of him knew this arrangement was temporary, unsustainable. But the father in him was already reconsidering everything. The 19th nanny lasted exactly 4 hours. Ms. Volkov from the prestigious European Placement Agency stood in James's office, her usually immaculate blonde hair disheveled, a suspicious green stain on her white blazer. "Mr. Mitchell, I have 30 years of experience with difficult children, but this—" She gestured helplessly toward the door. "They've created some sort of military operation. Through the window, James could see the evidence. Sheets knotted into escape routes, toy soldiers positioned strategically along the garden walls, and what appeared to be a catapult constructed from wooden blocks aimed at the fountain. "They were perfect angels this morning," he said, genuinely confused. For 2 weeks, since Sarah had started helping informally with the children, mornings had been peaceful. The triplets would help her with light cleaning, learning responsibility through play. But the moment a new nanny arrived, perfect angels, Ms. Volkov's laugh bordered on hysteria. "Sir, they convinced me they only spoke German, handed me a fake itinerary that included alligator wrestling and volcano excavation. And when I finally realized the deception, they'd somehow locked me in the wine cellar." Emma's head appeared upside down outside the window, clearly rappelling from her bedroom window using knotted bedsheets. She waved cheerfully at her father. "Margaret!" James called, but remembered the housekeeper was at her nephew's wedding. Only Sarah remained in the house, supposedly cleaning the attic. "Where did they even learn such tactics?" Miss Volkov demanded. James thought of the military strategy books in his library, the ones Emma had been reading to her siblings. At 4, she was already demonstrating an IQ that worried child psychologists. "I want double hazard pay," Ms. Volkov continued. "Locks on all supply closets and—" A fire alarm shrieked through the house. James sprinted toward the kitchen, finding Noah standing on a chair, expertly disabling the smoke detector, while Lily fanned a slightly smoking toaster with a dish towel. "We made lunch," Noah announced proudly, "like Sarah taught us." "Sarah doesn't burn toast," Emma added, appearing through the back door with grass stains on her knees. "Where is Sarah?" James demanded, relief flooding through him when he realized there was no actual fire. "Attic," Lily pointed upward. "She said stay in kitchen and practice being helpful." Within minutes, James found himself in the narrow attic stairwell, calling Sarah's name. Her voice came back weak, strained. "Mr. Mitchell, I'm stuck." He found her wedged between an antique trunk and fallen boxes, her face pale with pain. Apparently, she'd been organizing old Christmas decorations when the stacked boxes had shifted, pinning her leg. "Don't move," he said, immediately shifting boxes with practiced efficiency. As he freed her, she tried to stand and stumbled. Instinctively, he caught her, and for a moment they were impossibly close, her soft scent of lavender and vanilla surrounding him. "The children," she began, "terrorized another nanny into quitting," he finished, helping her to a stable position. "They seem to save their best behavior for you." Sarah's cheeks reddened. "They're just protecting what feels safe." And in that moment, James understood. His children weren't monsters. They were soldiers, defending the one person who'd bothered to understand them. "Sarah's hurt because of us." Emma's whisper carried the weight of someone far older than 4 as the triplets huddled together on James's office couch that evening. Dr. Peterson had confirmed a severe sprain, mandating Sarah stay off her feet for several days. She'd protested, worried about her job, but James had insisted she recover in the guest room. Now his children sat before him, their usual manic energy replaced by somber guilt. "The boxes fell because we made noise," Noah added, his lower lip trembling. "She was trying to escape our loud." "No, sweetheart." James knelt before them, his heart aching at their self-blame. "Accidents happen. Sarah doesn't want to escape you." "All the nannies escape," Lily said matter-of-factly. "They smile and lie and then run away, like wolves in sheep clothes." "Sheep's clothing," Emma corrected automatically. James studied his brilliant, damaged children. "Why don't you like the nannies?" "They pretend," Emma said simply. "They use baby voices and treat us like we're stupid. Sarah talks to us like real people. And she doesn't smile when she's sad," Noah added. "Mama never smiled when she was sad either." The mention of Catherine hung heavy in the air. James rarely spoke of her with the children. The grief felt too massive, too complicated for 4-year-olds to understand. "You remember Mama being sad?" he asked carefully. "When she got sick," Lily said, "but she still read stories and sang songs. She just didn't pretend everything was happy when it wasn't." James felt something shift in his chest. He'd been so focused on protecting them from grief, he'd forgotten they needed honesty more than false cheer. "Sarah doesn't pretend either," Emma continued. "When we ask about her mama, she looks sad but still answers. She says missing people is okay." "Can we take care of Sarah now?" Noah asked. "Like she takes care of us?" That evening, James found himself making soup, an inexplicably difficult task for someone who could negotiate billion-dollar deals. The triplets helped, which mostly involved Emma reading directions aloud while Noah and Lily argued over proper seasoning. When they knocked on Sarah's door, balancing a tray between them, she answered with tears in her eyes. "You didn't have to. We wanted to," Emma said firmly. "Family takes care of family." The word hung between them. Family. James watched Sarah's face transform as she understood what his daughter was really saying. Later, after the children were in bed, James found Sarah on the guest room balcony, her injured foot elevated, staring at the stars. "They're remarkable children," she said without turning around. "They love you." The words slipped out before he could stop them. Sarah's profile was soft in the moonlight. "They love their mother. I'm just safe." "Maybe that's enough." James stepped beside her, his voice quiet. Maybe safe is exactly what they need. What they all needed, he was beginning to think. 3 weeks later, Sarah found the letter hidden under her bedroom door. Her hands shook as she unfolded the expensive stationery, recognizing the letterhead from James's office. After days of recovery, during which the triplets had become her devoted nurses, bringing coloring books and singing off-key lullabies, she'd begun to hope, to imagine a different kind of future. The letter shattered that dream. "Sarah, I've been contacted by the Henderson Agency regarding a permanent nanny position. Ms. Blair Donovan comes with exceptional credentials. PhD in child development from Yale, 5 years with the Morrison family, Senator Morrison's twins, and specifically experience with gifted children. Your temporary assistance has been invaluable, but the children need professional guidance. Miss Donovan starts Monday. I've arranged a severance package that should help you transition to a new position. Thank you for everything. James Mitchell." Sarah pressed the letter against her chest, feeling her heart splinter. She'd known this was temporary, had told herself repeatedly not to get attached. But somewhere between teaching Emma about constellation patterns and helping Noah build elaborate block cities, between holding Lily during thunderstorms and seeing James's rare smiles, she'd forgotten to protect herself. "Sarah," Emma's voice came through the door. "Can we show you our surprise?" Wiping her eyes quickly, Sarah opened the door to find all 3 children beaming with excitement. They'd clearly been crafting. Glitter sparkled in their hair, and Noah had paint smudged on his cheek. "We made you something," Lily announced, pulling Sarah toward the playroom. The surprise was a handmade book, construction paper pages bound with yarn, titled Our Sarah, in Emma's careful printing. Each page contained drawings, Sarah reading stories, planting gardens, bandaging scraped knees. But it was the last page that destroyed her. A family portrait, stick figures holding hands under a rainbow. 4 figures, 3 small ones labeled Emma, Noah, and Lily, and 1 taller one labeled Sarah Mama. "Do you like it?" Noah asked anxiously. Sarah knelt to their level, trying to keep her voice steady. "It's the most beautiful thing anyone's ever made me." "We asked Daddy if you could be our real mama," Emma said matter-of-factly. He said it's complicated. That evening, James found Sarah packing her few belongings. She'd already spoken with Margaret about staying until Miss Donovan arrived, professional to the end. "You read the letter." It wasn't a question. The children deserve stability, Sarah said without looking up. Someone qualified. Someone qualified. James repeated the words like they tasted bitter. Miss Donovan has never seen Emma solve calculus problems for fun, or watched Noah engineer impossible block structures, or held Lily through nightmares about losing another mother figure. Sarah's hands stilled on her folded clothes. James. They gave you a Mother's Day card, Sarah, in July, because they said you'd take care of their hearts. She turned then, and he saw the tears she'd been hiding. That's exactly why I have to go. I don't understand. Sarah's laugh was hollow. Because I'm falling in love with them, with this family, with... She stopped, horrified at what she'd almost revealed. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken truths. Miss Donovan starts Monday, James said finally. I know. Sarah's voice was barely a whisper, but neither of them moved toward the door. Doctor. Claire Donovan arrived Monday morning with 3 suitcases, a briefcase full of behavioral charts, and the confidence of someone who'd never met the Mitchell triplets. Children respond to structure, she announced to James, adjusting her wire-rimmed glasses as she surveyed the mansion's main hall. The previous caretakers clearly lacked proper methodology. Sarah, relegated back to cleaning duties, watched from the kitchen doorway as Miss Donovan lined up Emma, Noah, and Lily like soldiers for inspection. The children stood unusually still, their eyes finding Sarah over the nanny's shoulder with expressions of betrayal that cut deep. We'll begin with cognitive assessments, Miss Donovan continued, pulling out tablets and test materials. Then implement a strict schedule, meals at precisely scheduled intervals, educational activities in 30-minute segments, structured play periods. Play periods? Emma's voice carried dangerous sweetness. Like recess? Exactly. Scheduled recreational time promotes healthy development. Miss Donovan smiled the practiced smile of someone who'd read about children in textbooks. Noah and Lily exchanged glances, a silent communication Sarah had learned to fear. That sounds wonderful, Emma continued, her angelic expression not fooling Sarah for a second. We love schedules. James looked relieved. Sarah felt sick. By noon, the first cracks appeared. Miss Donovan's cognitive assessment revealed what Sarah already knew. The triplets were exceptionally gifted, but more importantly, they were hurt children who'd learned to weaponize their intelligence. Their IQ scores are remarkable, Miss Donovan told James privately, not noticing Emma listening from behind the door. Emma shows particular aptitude for mathematics and strategy, but their emotional regulation needs significant work. That afternoon, Sarah found herself scrubbing floors near the playroom, pretending not to listen as Miss Donovan implemented structured learning time. Her heart ached, hearing the children's subdued responses, their natural creativity stifled by rigid schedules. Sarah, Lily's voice called out during a brief bathroom break. Miss Donovan says talking about Mama makes us fixate on loss. She says we should focus on future adaptations. Sarah's blood boiled. And what do you think about that? I think she's stupid, Lily whispered fiercely, and she smells like hospital. That evening, James found Sarah in the garden, tending the flowers the children had planted weeks ago. The sunflowers had grown tall, their faces turned toward the fading light. Ms. Donovan says the children adjusted well today, he said, settling beside her on the stone bench. Did she? Sarah's voice was carefully neutral. No tantrums, no chaos. They followed her schedule perfectly. Sarah pulled a weed with more force than necessary. Perfect children, then. You don't approve. It's not my place to approve or disapprove. Sarah stood, brushing dirt from her hands. Miss Donovan is very qualified. But as she walked away, she didn't see James's troubled expression or how his eyes lingered on the children's sunflowers, wild, imperfect, and beautiful in their chaotic growth. That night, the first sign of trouble came at 2 a.m. when the fire alarm screamed through the house. It was a controlled experiment, Emma explained matter-of-factly to the fire chief, her small hands clasped behind her back like a tiny professor. We hypothesized that smoke detectors would activate at different temperatures based on their positioning relative to heat sources. Fire Chief Rodriguez looked from the 4-year-old to the completely unharmed but very smoky kitchen, then to James, who stood in his pajamas wondering how his life had become a surreal nightmare. "You set fires to test smoke detectors?" Rodriguez's voice carried the patience of a man who'd seen everything. "Small fires," Noah clarified helpfully, "in controlled containers, like Sarah taught us about science experiments. Except Sarah never used fire because that's dangerous for children, Ms." Donovan appeared in the doorway, her perfectly pressed nightgown contrasting sharply with everyone else's disheveled appearance. "This is exactly the kind of boundary-testing behavior that requires firm correction." "Boundary testing?" Emma's eyes narrowed dangerously. "We were conducting research at 2 in the morning?" James demanded, exhaustion making his voice sharper than intended. "Ms. Donovan said we needed more cognitive stimulation," Lily explained innocently. "She said our brains were too advanced for normal 4-year-old activities." James rubbed his temples. After 3 days of Ms. Donovan's structured approach, his children had become tiny rebels with PhD-level justifications for their chaos. "I specifically instructed them about appropriate versus inappropriate learning activities," Ms. Donovan said defensively. "You told us regular toys were beneath our intellectual capacity," Noah added helpfully. "So we found intellectually appropriate activities." Fire Chief Rodriguez cleared his throat. "Mr. Mitchell, might I suggest investing in some very good fire extinguishers? And maybe, I don't know, finger paints?" After the fire department left, James found himself alone with Ms. Donovan in his office. She sat rigidly, her professional composure cracking. "Mr. Mitchell, these children require residential care. Their behavioral issues are beyond what home management can address." "Residential care?" James's voice went dangerously quiet. "Specialized institutions for gifted but troubled children. They need peer interaction with intellectual equals and professional psychological intervention. You want me to send my children away? I want you to consider what's best for their development. They're manipulating their environment through calculated disruption. Tonight's incident could have resulted in serious injury." James thought of Emma's careful explanation, Noah's scientific vocabulary, Lily's innocent logic. Manipulation or intelligence seeking appropriate outlets. "Where's Sarah?" he found himself asking. "The cleaning woman, sir, with respect. Romantic attachments to domestic help only complicate. Where is she?" James's voice cut through Ms. Donovan's professional analysis. He found Sarah in the servants' quarters, packing her few belongings by lamplight. She'd heard the sirens, the commotion, but hadn't come downstairs. Wasn't her place anymore. "They're okay?" she asked without looking up. "Physically, yes. Emotionally." James sat heavily on the small chair by her window. "Ms. Donovan wants to send them away, says they need institutional care." Sarah's hands stilled on her folded clothes. "And you're considering it?" "I don't know what I'm considering anymore." The admission came out raw, honest. "Every expert says the same thing. Every professional recommends separation, structure, specialized care. Every expert except the one who actually loves them." James looked up sharply. "Meaning?" "Meaning me." Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. "I love them, James. Completely, unconditionally, messily. Not because they're gifted or challenging or broken, but because they're Emma, Noah, and Lily. And because they plant sunflowers for their dead mother and make soup for hurt friends and ask impossible questions about why stars shine." Sarah. "Ms. Donovan is probably right. I'm not qualified. I don't have degrees or training or proper methodologies." She turned to face him then, tears streaming down her cheeks. "But I have something she doesn't." "What's that?" "Time, patience, and the absolute certainty that those children are not problems to be solved, they're people to be loved." Before James could respond, small feet thundered down the hallway, and 3 pajama-clad figures burst through the door. "Sarah!" Emma threw herself into Sarah's arms. "Are you leaving because we were bad?" And watching his daughter, brilliant, difficult, heartbroken Emma, cling to the woman who'd shown her unconditional love, James finally understood what he'd been too blind to see. The next morning brought revelations that changed everything. Sarah sat in James's office, her employment files spread across his mahogany desk. Ms. Donovan had insisted on proper background verification of all household staff, citing security concerns after the fire incident. "I should have told you," Sarah said quietly, her hands folded tightly in her lap, "but I was afraid you'd fire me." James studied the documents before him. Sarah Collins, age 26, bachelor's degree in elementary education from State University. 2 years teaching experience at Riverside Elementary before. "Your teaching license was suspended," he said carefully. "Revoked." Sarah's voice was steady, but her eyes held old pain. "I had a student, Marcus Thompson, 8 years old. Brilliant like your children, but his home life was—" She swallowed hard. "His father was abusive. Marcus came to school with bruises, flinching when adults moved too quickly." James waited, sensing more to the story. "I reported it. Social services investigated, found insufficient evidence. Marcus's father was a prominent businessman, well-connected. The family moved Marcus to private school, claimed I was a hysterical young teacher making false accusations." "But you didn't stop there," James guessed. Sarah's laugh was bitter. "I couldn't. I knew what I'd seen. So I kept calling social services, documenting everything, pushing for another investigation. Marcus's father sued the school district for harassment. I was fired for exceeding professional boundaries and causing emotional distress to a student's family." "What happened to Marcus?" "He died 6 months later. Accidental fall down the stairs." Sarah's voice broke. "I was cleaning offices at night to pay rent when I saw his obituary, 8 years old." The silence stretched heavy between them. James understood now why Sarah had approached his children with such intuitive care, why she'd never once suggested they were problems to be fixed, rather than people to be loved. "That's why you came here," he said. "You couldn't teach anymore. Teaching was my life. I wanted to help children, protect them, show them they mattered." Sarah wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "When I lost my license, I lost everything. Margaret hired me because she saw something other employers didn't, desperation that comes from loving children too much rather than too little." "Sarah." James leaned forward. "What you did for Marcus, it wasn't wrong. The state board disagrees. Ms. Donovan is right. I'm not qualified to care for your children. I have no credentials, no professional standing. I'm just a disgraced teacher who cleans houses." Before James could respond, Margaret appeared in the doorway, her face grim. "Mr. Mitchell, you need to see this." She led them to the playroom, where Ms. Donovan sat rigidly while the triplets performed what could only be described as a military precision rebellion. They'd arranged their toys into precise formations, built elaborate block structures that spelled out "Sarah Stays" in 3 languages, and somehow programmed their educational tablets to display photos of Sarah in an endless slideshow. "They've been at this for an hour," Miss Donovan said tightly. "They refuse to engage in any scheduled activities until their demands are met." Emma looked up from her tablet, her expression serious beyond her years. "We researched Miss Donovan's credentials. She's worked with 6 families in 5 years, average employment duration 8 months. Reason for leaving: philosophical differences regarding child development approaches. You hacked her employment records? James asked, amazed despite himself. Public information, Noah corrected. We're very good at research. We also research teaching licenses, Lily added importantly. Sarah's license says revoked for excessive advocacy. That means she loved a student too much to let him get hurt. James looked at his 4-year-old daughter, brilliant, perceptive, and absolutely certain about what mattered. How did you find that information? Same way we found Miss Donovan's college thesis, Emma said matter-of-factly. Behavioral modification techniques for controlling gifted children. Control, Daddy, not love. Ms. Donovan stood abruptly. Mr. Mitchell, I cannot work in an environment where my professional expertise is undermined by emotional manipulation from both staff and children. Then don't, James said quietly. Everyone turned to stare at him. I'm sorry, Ms. Donovan, but your services are no longer required. As the nanny gathered her belongings with wounded dignity, James knelt before his children. You three need to understand something. Sarah isn't staying because you demanded it. 3 small faces fell. She's staying because she loves you. And because He paused, the truth finally clear. Because I love her too. The truth hung in the air like morning mist, beautiful and terrifying. You love Sarah? Emma asked, her voice small with hope she was afraid to trust. I do, James said simply. And more than that, I need her. We all do. But Sarah had gone pale, shaking her head. James, you can't. It's gratitude or relief or it's love. His voice was firm, certain. It's watching you teach Emma that tears water the garden of the heart. It's seeing you hold Lily through nightmares and help Noah build impossible dreams out of blocks. It's knowing that in a world full of people who want to fix my children, you're the only one who simply loves them. Sarah's hand pressed against her heart. I can't be their mother. I'm not Catherine. No, James agreed softly. You're not Catherine. You're Sarah, and that's exactly who we need. The children watched this exchange with the intense focus of people whose entire world hung in the balance. But the legal issues, Sarah continued desperately. My background, the license. Irrelevant. James stood, moving toward her with purpose. I don't need a certified teacher or a licensed professional. I need someone who sees my children as the remarkable people they are, someone who plants gardens and reads stories and believes that love is stronger than loss. People will talk, Sarah whispered. The billionaire and his cleaning lady, let them talk. James cupped her face gently in his hands. Sarah, I've spent 2 years trying to hire people to love my children. The answer was here all along. Emma suddenly burst into tears. Not tantrum tears, but pure emotional release. Does this mean Sarah gets to stay forever, like a real mama? If she'll have us, James said, his eyes never leaving Sarah's face. Sarah looked at the 3 children who'd become her heart, at the man who'd become her home, and felt every wall she'd built around her battered heart crumble. I love you too, she whispered. All of you. So much it terrifies me. What followed was a tangle of arms and tears and laughter as 3 4-year-olds and 2 adults who'd forgotten how to hope held each other like they'd never let go. Later that evening, after the children were finally asleep, having insisted on dragging their mattresses into Sarah's room for a family sleepover, James found Sarah on the garden terrace. Second thoughts? He asked, settling beside her among the flowers his children had planted. Third and fourth thoughts, Sarah admitted. James, I'm nobody special. I have no money, no family, no impressive background. You could have anyone. I don't want anyone. James turned to face her fully. Sarah, do you know what you've given me? You've given me my children back. Their laughter, their curiosity, their capacity for love. You've shown them that losing someone doesn't mean they're not worthy of being found again. They taught me that too, Sarah said softly. Then we're even. James smiled, the expression transforming his entire face, except for one thing. What's that? He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket, and Sarah's breath caught. James. I know it's fast. I know it's crazy. But Sarah, I've lived enough life to know when something is right. He opened the box, revealing a simple, perfect diamond that caught the moonlight like captured stars. Will you marry me? Will you be my wife and their mother and the heart of this family that makes no sense to anyone but us? Sarah stared at the ring, at this man who'd just offered her everything she'd never dared dream of, and felt pure joy bloom in her chest like the sunflowers in their garden. Yes, she whispered. Yes, yes, yes. As James slipped the ring onto her finger, 3 small faces appeared at the bedroom window above, pressed against the glass like excited puppies. They're kissing, Lily announced loudly enough to wake the neighbors. Good, Emma called down. That means we're a real family now. And looking up at the children who'd claimed her from the first day she'd dried their tears, Sarah knew Emma was absolutely right. The wedding planning began immediately, which was to say, it began with 3 4-year-olds staging a hostile takeover of every decision. White dress is boring, Emma announced over breakfast, wielding a crayon like a sword as she redesigned Sarah's wedding dress with rainbow sleeves and a cape. Superhero mamas need superhero clothes. And we need security, Noah added seriously, constructing an elaborate fortress out of cereal boxes. Bad people might try to steal Sarah before the wedding is official. James and Sarah exchanged amused glances across the table. In the 3 weeks since their engagement, the children had approached wedding preparations with the strategic intensity of tiny military commanders. What kind of bad people? Sarah asked, genuinely curious about Noah's thought process. Other daddies who want a mama like you, Lily explained matter-of-factly. Margaret says lots of daddies are lonely. Margaret, chopping vegetables nearby, tried to hide her smile. I may have mentioned that Sarah is a catch, and certain people should consider themselves very lucky. And the truth was, their unconventional family had become the talk of their Connecticut social circle. James Mitchell, tech billionaire, marrying his former housekeeper. The society pages hummed with speculation and thinly veiled disapproval. Mrs. Pemberton called this morning, Margaret said quietly to James. The country club board is concerned about your membership status. Let them be concerned, James replied evenly. Anyone who can't accept Sarah isn't someone I need in my life. But Sarah had heard the conversation. That afternoon, while the children napped, she found James in his office, staring out at the garden where their love story had begun. You're giving up a lot for me, she said softly. I'm gaining everything that matters. James pulled her into his arms. Sarah, do you know what my life was before you? Meetings and money and children who couldn't trust anyone to stay. I was successful and miserable. As your friends were never really friends if they can't see what I see in you. James kissed her forehead gently. Besides, we're about to have new friends. Better ones. He was right. The guest list for their small ceremony had grown beyond their immediate circle. Fire Chief Rodriguez and his wife, Dr. Peterson and his family. Sarah's former teaching colleagues who'd never stopped believing in her. Margaret's extended Irish family who'd adopted Sarah as one of their own. But the children, Sarah continued, growing up with this attention, the whispers, will grow up knowing their parents chose love over convention, James finished firmly, that their mother is a woman who fought for what was right, even when it cost her everything, that their father was smart enough to see past social expectations to find his heart. That evening brought an unexpected visitor. Catherine's mother, Margaret Whitmore, arrived without warning, her silver hair perfectly coiffed, her expression unreadable. James. Her voice was cool, controlled. We need to talk. Sarah instinctively moved toward the children's playroom, but Mrs. Whitmore's voice stopped her. You too, Miss Collins. This concerns you. In the living room, surrounded by scattered toys and evidence of their chaotic but happy life, Mrs. Whitmore sat with perfect posture while James and Sarah waited for judgment. My daughter loved those children more than life itself, she began, her voice tight with old grief. When she died, I wondered if they'd ever be truly happy again. Sarah's heart clenched, preparing for rejection. But today, Emma called me. Mrs. Whitmore's composure cracked slightly. She said, Grandma, we have a mama again, and she makes Daddy smile like he used to with Mommy Catherine. She said you read the same stories Catherine used to read, but with your own voice. That you don't try to replace her mother, but you help them remember her. Tears tracked down the older woman's cheeks. Catherine would want her children to be loved. She would want James to find happiness again. And Miss Collins, Sarah, I've seen how my grandchildren light up when they talk about you. She opened her purse, pulling out a small wrapped box. These were Catherine's pearl earrings, her something old. I'd like you to wear them on your wedding day. Sarah accepted the box with shaking hands, overwhelmed by the gesture. Welcome to the family, dear, Mrs. Whitmore said softly. Catherine would have liked you very much. Later, after Mrs. Whitmore had left with promises to help with wedding preparations, Sarah found herself in the children's bathroom, overseeing toothbrushing with practiced ease. Grandma Whitmore likes you, Emma observed, toothpaste foaming around her words. How do you know? She smiled with her eyes, Lily explained importantly. She only does that when she really means it. Plus, she gave you Mama Catherine's earrings, Noah added. That means you're official family now. As Sarah tucked them into bed, Emma's small hand caught hers. Sarah, are you nervous about being our mama? Sarah considered the question seriously. A little. Being a mama is a big responsibility. Oh, but you're already good at it, Emma said confidently. You've been practicing. And lying there in the dark, listening to the soft breathing of 3 children who'd chosen her as completely as she'd chosen them, Sarah realized Emma was absolutely right. 6 months later, Sarah woke to the sound of 3 conspirators whispering loudly outside her bedroom door. Shh, you'll wake her up, Emma's voice carried clearly through the oak door. But we need to give her the surprise before breakfast, Noah protested. I can't reach the doorknob, Lily added helpfully. Sarah smiled, stretching luxuriously in the bed she now shared with James. Their wedding 3 months ago had been perfect, intimate ceremony in the garden surrounded by sunflowers, with 3 flower children who'd somehow managed not to upstage the bride, though Emma's rainbow dress had certainly tried. Mrs. Mitchell, James murmured against her neck, his voice heavy with sleep and contentment. I believe you're being summoned. Mrs. Mitchell, the name still sent warmth through her chest. Come in, Sarah called softly. The door burst open, revealing 3 pajama-clad children carrying a breakfast tray that looked suspiciously like it had been assembled by 4-year-olds. Slightly burnt toast, orange juice in coffee mugs, and what appeared to be scrambled eggs with an unusual amount of glitter. Happy Family Day, they announced in unison. Family Day? James sat up, running a hand through his disheveled hair. We invented it, Emma explained proudly. It's the day Sarah became our official mama, so now we celebrate every month. The eggs are special, Noah added importantly. We put edible glitter in them because Sarah likes sparkly things. And we made coffee, Lily announced, though the brown liquid in the thermos looked suspiciously like chocolate milk. Sarah accepted her breakfast with the solemnity such an offering deserved. The toast was indeed burnt, the eggs were slightly rubbery with an alarming amount of sparkle, and the coffee was definitely chocolate milk with whipped cream. It was absolutely perfect. "This is delicious," she said honestly, because love made everything taste better. "We have news too," Emma said, bouncing on the bed with barely contained excitement. "Tell them, Daddy." James grinned, reaching into his nightstand drawer. "We got the official papers yesterday." He handed Sarah a document that made her eyes fill with tears. Adoption papers. Emma, Noah, and Lily Mitchell Collins. Their names legally joined with hers forever. "You're really, truly our mama now," Lily whispered, climbing into Sarah's lap. "Forever and ever." "Forever and ever," Sarah repeated, her voice thick with emotion. Later that morning, after the children had run off to play and James had left for a board meeting he'd actually attend on time for once, Sarah found herself in the garden. Their sunflowers had grown tall and strong, their faces turned toward the sun like hope made manifest. Margaret joined her on the stone bench, a cup of real coffee in her weathered hands. "Penny for your thoughts, dear." Sarah smiled, watching Emma teach Noah and Lily how to identify different types of butterflies. "I was thinking about how lost I was 6 months ago, how broken everything seemed, and just now I know the difference between being broken and being broken open." Sarah touched the pearl earrings she still wore, Catherine's gift that had become her talisman. "Being broken open lets the light in." "Catherine would be proud," Margaret said softly, "of the children, of James, of you. You didn't replace her. You helped them learn to love again." That evening, as Sarah read bedtime stories to 3 children who hung on every word, she felt the complete wholeness of a life she'd never dared imagine. James appeared in the doorway, leaning against the frame with the expression of a man who knew exactly how lucky he was. "And the little prince learned," Sarah read, "that what makes things beautiful is invisible to the eye. It can only be seen with the heart." "Like families," Emma said sleepily. "You can't see love, but you can feel it." "That's right, sweetheart." "I can feel it everywhere," Lily murmured, already half asleep. "In the house and the garden, and even when we're not together, I can feel it. That's because love grows bigger when you share it," Noah added wisely. "Like Sarah's flowers." As Sarah kissed 3 foreheads and tucked covers around 3 small bodies who'd become her entire world, she marveled at the truth of Noah's observation. Love did grow bigger when shared. Exponentially, impossibly, miraculously bigger. Later, sitting on the terrace with James, watching stars appear over their garden, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought them here. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if Mrs. Henderson had stayed?" she asked. James considered this, his arm tightening around her shoulders. "No, because I don't think this was accident, Sarah. I think Catherine sent you to us." "You really believe that?" "I believe love doesn't end, it just changes form. Catherine's love for her children led them to you. Your love for that little boy Marcus led you to our children. Everything connected exactly as it needed to." Sarah leaned into her husband's warmth, thinking of all the broken pieces that had somehow formed something more beautiful than anything she'd dreamed possible. A billionaire's triplets who'd needed someone to see past their chaos to their hearts, a grieving widower who'd forgotten how to hope, a disgraced teacher who'd thought her story was over. "I love you," she whispered into the Connecticut evening, meaning it for James, for the children sleeping upstairs, for the life they'd built together from the scattered pieces of their former selves. "And we love you, Mrs. Mitchell," James replied, his voice full of wonder that never seemed to fade. "More than all the stars." From the children's bedroom window above, if anyone had been looking, they might have seen 3 small faces pressed against the glass, smiling down at the parents who'd taught them that sometimes the most beautiful families are the ones that choose each other against all odds. Love, as Noah had observed, really did grow bigger when shared. And in the Mitchell house it grew bigger every single day.